Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining me for another episode of Running to Write, where I give questionable writing advice through running metaphors. Hopefully, you all can hear me because I think, yeah, perfect. Awesome. Yeah, there might have been some issue with my microphone and wasn't entirely certain if it was on mute. So let's go. Richard, Eloise, thank you for being here. Thank you for being the first people to show up. Barrett, awesome for you to join in. And hello, friends. Before we get too started and underway, there were a couple of questions about last week's episode. So I wanted to show off the perfume bottle that I have. It's Into the Void Perfumes. This is the Ancient Market, so it's very spice heavy. It's got a whole bunch of different spices. And it is a 15 milliliter container. For what's worth, these, in addition to smelling like the book, these could actually be legitimate perfumes. I was surprised at AwesomeCon. That's where this whole conversation got started from, where I think of the Void as kind of an otherworldly scent that is very difficult to place. It smells very ozonic. And I wouldn't necessarily want to smell like that fragrance. But then again, the person who tried it out really liked it. So that fits with their own style, and more power to them. And also, Adriana made the logo on here so you can see that this is the Void from book 2. You can see there are the tiny cracks in it. She was really proud of herself because she took the Void from book 1, which you can see behind me, where you have Derek falling for the portal, and she spent like an hour photoshopping Derek out of it so that way she could have the Void there. And it is a perfect spherical circle, which I decided was not the best look for a perfume bottle for reasons. So instead, we use the book 2 version where there's this one. There we go. Where there are kind of these cracks that are static outside of it, and it's not really a perfect circle, perfect black hole. And yeah, I don't really feel like talking more about that because thank you, Richard, for explicitly stating it. But we had a good laugh about it afterwards. She was too in the weeds of being really proud of herself for photoshopping a very large portion of the image. And then I pointed out something that she didn't really realize because, again, she was too focused on it. And we had a fun laugh about it because, you are excellent at Photoshop. So it's wonderful. It was just really funny because you were trying to do something very, very specific. And then I came in not having any of the context of how much work you put into it. And it was like, hey, it looks like this. And then you were like, damn it, it does. Yes, I will take the high road, Richard. I will take the high road. Now, anyways, tonight's episode is all about fourth walls and breaking the fourth wall. Now, I just finished a rewatch of Reboot because I was feeling nostalgic. And as good as my memory is about a show I watched when I was 8 or so years old, there were plenty of gaps. For those outside of likely a 2-year window of my own age, Reboot is the story of computer sprites living within a computer within mainframe who fight viruses. Occasionally, GameCubes fall from the sky within the computer, and the characters go in to do battle against users or else risk parts of mainframe being destroyed when the user wins. It's one of the earliest 3D rendered TV shows that I know of. And while it starts off with quite dated animation and the quality of the show itself, it matures really well with the 3D characters and the 3D models that get very impressive towards the end, especially by 90s standards. And it delves into some very, very dark themes. By the time it finished, I was in middle, maybe high school. I don't know. Math is hard. And I was basically the ideal market for that. I started watching the show when I was a kid, and then it grew along with me. Now, in my mind, the show is perfect because it balanced the lightheartedness, the comedy, the action, the good versus evil, appealing to the target audience of children and throwing in enough references for adults to enjoy it too. Despite being a kid's show, there were references to X-Files, Evil Dead, Mortal Kombat, and James Bond. These moments felt like fourth wall breaks, and this show has moments where it outright made references to being a TV show or called out a larger audience, that is, the viewers. That got me thinking about how to use those moments within our stories, and I came up with some tips based on the experience. These are for the intentional fourth wall break moments, like those in Harley Quinn, Deadpool, or Jane Silent Bob movies, and not necessarily for first and second person points of view in which the narrator is having a conversation with the readers. For example, the prologue might be, "Oh, you're sitting around a fire, and let me tell you the story." Or if it's first person, it is the person outright retelling the events that happened to them across the span of the story. So these are my 5 tips to writing fourth wall breaks. Number 1, use sparingly. Before Reboot jumped the shark, there were only 1 or 2 instances where I could point at the screen and have the characters be looking back at me with quizzical expressions of judgment. In a particular instance, they were trapped in a game where the user seemed to be a sadistic character causing pain, which was based on the Evil Dead. Of course, since this was intended to be a show for kids, nothing was outright shown. The main characters then look at us, the viewers, and ask what kind of a twisted person thinks this is fun, because that correlates to both the violent video games of the era, a la Doom, or Evil Dead itself, the movie that it was referencing. Then there was the satisfying finale that ended 5 minutes early of the full episode runtime, after which the creators did a victory lap where they had the characters watching a play or a musical that was a summary of the past season. Now, it was only 5 minutes long, so it was just one really quick speed run song. It was one of the classic songs too. I know if I heard it, but it's basically free for use, so they tailor it to their needs. Again, this is fine. Believe it or not, the fact Reboot made it all is surprising, and its quality was fantastic for the time, and even by modern standards. The creativity displayed within the dialogue and the references were all fun. So take your encore, take your victory lap, break that fourth wall, show us a play that was the entire third season as a musical number. Then, when money caused the season to be renewed, but shortened to 2 sets of 4 episode blocks, both parts of which ended in cliffhangers, that means that the series never truly wrapped up, because the comics that came out like a decade later, they were hit or miss. But there were a lot of fourth wall breaks within those episodes that had some good moments, but they never really hit the same quality that the first couple of seasons did. And that goes from, in terms of fourth wall breaks, where a character watches the DVD of the previous seasons to get caught up on everything that happened. So there's a whole bunch of things there's the main plot of the series, and then they just shove basically the kid character into a corner, say, watch this show, and the kid learns about themselves and what they become. And it's really complicated, but they learn about how they acted in the past couple of seasons. And through that fourth wall break, it wasn't very well done. And there were a bunch of moments where actors came in where sprites were acting as the characters in the show. So they had people supposed extras in there who were dressed up as the main characters, and they were filming the various scenes that had already happened. It's really, really meta, but basically all that built up goodwill was squandered. So to summarize, characters entering a violent video game and turning to the camera for a social commentary moment is good when it's one of the few moments where the fourth wall is broken. Having a character watch their own show is a bad fourth wall break. Spaceballs at best. Everything else feels like a flimsy copy. Like everything else, fourth wall breaks should be tracked. And it's a good thing Richard is here, because I'm about to suggest that we use color-coded systems to measure the number of action scenes, inner monologue scenes, dialogue scenes, etc., and add in fourth wall breaks to that list. This way we can see if we're overdoing any particular storytelling mechanic in a way which would be distracting to the readers. And we can also see if there are any outliers. And don't hide from outliers. I think an action scene could be broken up with a comedic fourth wall break if the consequences feel too dire. There's an exception coming to you in just a few minutes. And before we get on to number 2, I'm going to check out the chats. Yes, showing the show's age. Everything about the show shows its age because the references did not age well. There was one towards in the 4th season, so those 2 blocks of 4 episodes where they did a Austin Powers and the Spy Who Shagged Me reference, which was bad. Yeah. And yes, I did say use a color code system with spreadsheets. And exactly. It was a lot of fun in the movie where you have Loki, played by Matt Damon, do like that was a complete comedy beat. And Marvel MCU movies can get away with it because they have done such high quality, and those films need moments of levity. So go ahead and show us fake Loki and fake Thor, or actors Loki and actors Thor, doing a scene from what was it, Thor 2 in front of, spoiler alert, fake Odin. Yes, Austin Powers is a classic. I definitely feel like I want to rewatch it at some point, but I also feel like it is extremely dated. Now, looks like there are some conversations about Ready Player 2. So I really, the first time I read Ready Player 1, I thought was fun. Rereading it, that's a book where because the movie exists, it makes the book worse. And I know a lot of people are saying how, no matter what a reboot does, there's always the original, but the movie showed all the cracks that were present in the book that I at least overlooked because the book was so much fun. And seeing them in movie form, it did. I don't know if I'll ever go back to reread Ready Player One. And I heard that Ready Player Two was nothing short of a catch grab. Yes, The Simpsons does this all the time. There are plenty of shows that do this. Family Guy does it, where they break the fourth wall. Basically, any long-running comedy show will break the fourth wall. Young Ben. Oh, yeah. Young Ben was a monster. Oh, boy. Oh, boy. I'm just going to skip over all those conversations. Yes. Since Adrian isn't here, I will happily take swings at Game of Thrones in that the ending was so bad that it collectively made what was a pop culture phenomenon and social interaction touchstone get sucked into a void where it has yet to be referenced again, short of conversations like this, where it's, wow, that's just a whole bunch of wasted potential. Anyways, back on to good things. Number 2, be unpredictable. Jay and Silent Bob movies are based around toilet humor, but they do eventually rise to be better than that in a given moment. Usually that's towards the end when Silent Bob breaks character to speak directly to the audience and tell us the theme of the movie. Knowing that that moment is coming in each comedy lessens the moment when it does happen. The same is true for Harley Quinn and Deadpool and all their storylines. Feeling like a moment is building up to where the character will talk to the readers offers diminishing returns, so fake us out. Give the build up and then hold off on delivering until the next chapter. If it means skipping a fourth wall break in the book, then it may be better off and you can postpone it for the next book. That being said, if you want to break the fourth wall, still go for it, but I would recommend giving us fake out moments where it seems like this would be the perfect time to do it. And then just hold off. Like any other building tension moment, you keep rising in tension and then finally deliver. It within a story, it's better to drive up that tension. It's better to give us fake outs and then deliver on what we want, that emotional moment, that fourth wall break, etc. Yeah, Deadpool is supposed to be a commentary, if not social. Sorry, it's supposed to be a comedy, if not social commentary. Where the jokes land is hit or miss. It depends largely on Ryan Reynolds' charisma, and I think he's the perfect person to play Deadpool. I also, let's see, I don't think I ever read any true Deadpool books, but I did read because I'm a huge Spider-Man fan, and I think in, let's say, 2015 there was a short series involving Spider-Man and Deadpool, which was a lot of fun to read because they travel to hell, they do all types of stuff, and those were extremely fun, extremely funny. Deadpool was the comedian the entire time, and I enjoyed those books. Yes, I am a Spider fan. In fact, yeah, I could say that. Yeah. So one of my wedding gifts, sorry, one of the gifts my wife gave me for our wedding was an edition of Spider-Man when he married married Mary Jane. So I have that. It's in the top row of this shelf, and it's laminated between two pieces of cardboard. So lots of fun personal story. Anyways, number 3, when it comes to breaking the fourth wall, be off the wall. Having characters interact with readers, sorry, having characters interact with the readers works when the story is itself at least a little absurd or fantastical. Look at Deadpool. Every single one of those stories is utterly bonkers. It's usually the best way to do it. From the boy reading the never-ending story and realizing that he was in the story he was reading to every Deadpool comic, there needs to be some suspension of disbelief. Suspension of belief. We need to suspend our belief. There we go. To make those fourth wall breaks hit. The never-ending story is a textbook fantasy. Deadpool is, well, Deadpool. He's an out-of-the-box character in which his stories try to progressively outdo all the previous stories in their sheer absurdity. Thank you. Yes, it is suspension of disbelief. There we go. Okay, well, thank you for correcting me live on TV. I agree. I appreciate the help there. I will continue to use terms incorrectly as long as they're not written down, in which case I can actually think about them before saying them. Because here, my mouth tends to move a lot faster than my brain does to catch up. Anyways, back to Deadpool. There's a reason why every comic convention has a large number of people dressed up as Deadpool. Doesn't matter if it's a comic book convention, sci-fi convention, anime convention, Renaissance fair. And yes, at all of those, you will also have people dressed up in Star Trek uniforms. But for Deadpool specifically, there'll be somebody, at least one person wearing a Deadpool mask. And they'll likely be dressed up as a mashup of other characters or making a statement or looking for attention. At this past Awesome Con, I saw a Deadpool with a not safe for work doll strapped to his back that was made to look like Hugh Jackman's Wolverine. It had the claws, it had fake chest hair drawn on, all of it. My point is that subtlety is not for Deadpool. There's a reason he's known as the Merc with a Mouth. And because of that, that makes him breaking the fourth wall fit. He also didn't start off as that absurd of a character. He was basically a normal mercenary. And then over time, they just went wild with it. Yes. And number 4, use the right tone. Much like within the various different Marvel comic series, fourth wall breaks feel unnatural in certain settings. Most X-Men titles almost never address the audience within the stories. There are moments where editors will include specific author comments where they'll reference other comic books. So they'll say, something will happen and they'll say, this is just like episode, such and such comic from such and such year. Or when some character references a specific event, there'll be an asterisk there and it'll say, hey, come check out this edition from, whenever. But the characters themselves don't acknowledge those moments. And we as the readers, there's no real, I don't consider that the same as a fourth wall break between the characters. That's just somebody coming through and saying for more information. That's like a, not an appendix, that's a footnote within a book you're reading. Which, yes, footnotes can also break the fourth wall where it's directly talking to the reader. But in this case, it feels a little bit different than the point I'm trying to make here. On the other hand, I think it would be jarring within X-Men where Cyclops, Rogue, Storm, whomever speaks to the reader in the same way Deadpool does. One of Deadpool's superpowers is that he realizes that he's a character in a comic book, whereas Cyclops, Rogue, Storm are extremely serious characters with years and years of tragic backstory. When Deadpool gets dismembered, it's a joke. When Storm loses her powers, it is a decades-long struggle to regain everything that she lost. Hopping over to DC, Batman is far too serious to break the fourth wall, whereas Harley Quinn is perfectly set up to do so. Not all stories need or can fit a fourth wall break. And lastly, number 5. Don't do the textbook zany opening to a story. I hate this one. I've mentioned on this channel many, many times, but I'll keep saying it. This is the moment where we're introduced to the story with a fun action sequence, and I don't care about the stakes because this is the first scene. I have no idea who the characters are. I have no idea where they are, even if they say where they are. I have no reason to care about the characters. I have no reason to care about the plot. I have no attachments whatsoever to the story or understand who is doing what or why. As the action is going on and people are fighting, the hero narrates something like, "You'll never guess why I'm fighting aliens from the planet Zor while holding these balloons and yodeling." And then they'll follow up with, "Confused? Sure you are. Let's rewind today and figure out who I am and why any of this matters." That is, in my opinion, a very cheap ploy to drive up mystery because you have multiple questions that are being asked and to drive up the plot, I guess, or the tension, because we know no matter what where the story is going. It's kind of like having a bomb under the seat, where we know that at some point the character, everything's going to go wrong for the character, and then they'll end up in whatever fight the book starts with or the movie starts with. And when those introductions to a movie or book happen, I find they're one, used to compensate for bad plotting and pacing by introducing the action without any substance, and two, used to lengthen stories which are too short by repeating the climax, but with more added the second time around. So it adds in an extra minute, 2 or 3, or even 5 to the runtime of a movie that ends too soon. A movie that doesn't have enough plot to carry it through for a full, say, hour and a half, and so it uses that. Now, the first point is an important one. In almost every instance I've observed this technique, the characters are static, lack chemistry with other characters, the plot is lagging or is overly simplistic, or it's a combination of this and many more story sins. But here is a big action set piece with lots of shooty and a fake out meant to draw us in. In fact, now that I think about it, Sonic the Hedgehog did it, Megamind did this too, so it might be an issue with 3D animators and a sign of a lack of originality. Now, I thoroughly enjoy Megamind, but I hate its beginning solely for this reason. It feels like the creators didn't have enough confidence in the story they were telling, so they needed to show this big epic sequence with a life and death scenario that ultimately in the end doesn't really have a life and death scenario because, he already at the point at which he's telling the story, he basically already knew how he was going to survive the situation. So that fake out was meant to drive up the stakes and tension without actually delivering. Anyways, I'm off on a rant again, bringing this back around into a close for my 5 tips. Action-packed openings with no substance, meant to draw in readers' attention with a fourth wall break. It Sure, it drives up relatability and it will explain that things did not go according to plan, but it also feels like a cheap overused trick and a rushed moment that was tacked on at the end. So, if you can, avoid those. Aw, thank you. Superbets did this. Well, okay. Superbets did this, but at the same time, you absolutely love that movie. Yeah, I feel like a lot of kids' movies do this because it shows the popcorn effect, where it's a unsatisfactory buttery treat that doesn't have any substance beneath it. Oh, I hate that. I absolutely hate that. I've commented in a previous episode, I have no idea where, but I've absolutely said, ma- made fun of a book. One of the might have been a book I was reviewing where they commented about how this is so much like Harry Potter. And I thought, wow, this book is garbage. And I was right because the plot was bad, the setting was bad, the character dynamics were bad, the characters were flat. Whatever book it was, I did not like it. And yeah. Um, or these orcs are, it's about to get Lord of the Rings in here or something like that. Or these orcs are just like Lord of the Rings orcs. It is a shortcut that lessens whatever content it is referencing. Sorry, it lessens the book, not the thing that the better source that they're referencing. And I'm going off again, but whenever, let's say if I were going to invoke Harry Potter or something like that in my own series, that tries to elevate my book by comparing it to other fantastic touchstones of literature. And I don't know. I don't know when I'm actually reviewing Dune. I might. We'll see. So step one, I need to watch Dune. Step two, I need to. Oh boy, sorry, I clicked the wrong thing. I'm not reviewing the Dune bucket. That is $25 that we are wasting for a joke because the advertising people knew what they were doing when they created the Dune 2 popcorn bucket. If you don't know what it is, just go anywhere on the internet and you'll find out. We were already talking about Uranus earlier, and I am going to steer this back into a tasteful ending for my episode. And my comment section has officially gone off the rails. Anyways, we are done here. Let's see here. Those are my 5 tips for breaking the fourth wall. Use them at your own discretion. I am Ben Pick. Thank you for joining me in Running to Write. Let me know in those comments whether you have fun or inventive ways to break the fourth wall and maybe give your characters nods that they know that they are characters within a story. Be sure to, as Richard mentioned, break the fourth wall and hit those like and subscribe buttons. Also, don't forget to sign up for my Running to Write monthly newsletter. Coming up, I'll be highlighting my 3rd book and how its book launch day went, because book launch day is on the 30th of this month. And the next newsletter will come out on the 3rd of April. Also, yes, please be here for the 30th of March at noon Eastern Time, where I will be having a book launch party live stream on this channel. Next week, I'll be playing a pre-recorded video. I think it's about the Toguro brothers. Well, specifically the younger Toguro brother, who is arguably the best villain in all. Best villain, full stop, period. And so I dive into what makes him so fantastic. Although in only an hour, I can do. In a 10-minute episode, I can only do so much. But that being said, he is fantastic. And if that's the episode, I'm not entirely sure. I have a couple of pre-recorded episodes that I can go through. There's one about writing romances that I might go through, but it's all my queue. And I will see you all back here in a live stream in about, oh, wow. So yeah, next week is a pre-recorded episode. And then the very next time I'm on here for a live stream, it will be that book launch episode. And I got a couple of fun conversations and talks about planned for after that, where the episode after that will be all about, I wrote a book, what's next? And where I will walk through what to do or what I've done after creating that book. Spoiler alert, it is outlining and compiling all my notes. But I will give very, very specific tips at the time. And like I said, I'm rambling. So I'm going to call it. Yes, thank you for giving away the that. But there are tips to do it, and so I'm going to walk through my process to help guide you and guide us all to getting back on that horse and writing the next book, which is really fun because I was sorry, I'm going off another rant, and I will just tell one more story. I was hanging out with a bunch of friends this past weekend, and they were all really excited because I was telling them, well, excited is a relative term given the circumstances we were all getting together. But anyways, they were excited as far as we all could be. They were excited for the book that was coming out, and the book wasn't even out yet. It's not out until the 30th. The I think one or two people might pre-ordered it, but they were already asking me about, so when's the next one coming out? And I'm like, I have barely thought about it. It's going to be like 2 years. And I have a loose plan, a loose schedule. It would be nice if I could get for AwesomeCon 2 years from now. I don't know if I'll be able to hit that. Work is really picking up, so it is significantly more difficult to find the time to mentally devote myself to writing. But anyways, I've rambled on long enough. You all, thank you for joining me here. I really appreciate you all being here in the live stream. If you're watching this on replay, I'm sorry for taking a lot longer than I was expecting for this. But with that in mind, see you next time. Until then, break all those walls, even the fourth ones. Yeah, we'll go with that. See you around.